Suppose we have E, um, which is a type 1 region in 3 space that has a projection D onto the xy plane that is easily or conveniently described in polar coordinates. I can put bounds on E by saying this upper piece here is a continuous function such that z equals u2 of xy. And then this bottom continuous function here, I'll say z equals u1 of xy. And then here, in terms of polar coordinates, I'm going to think of this angle as being alpha and this angle as being beta. And then down here, I'm going to think of this radius, r1, as being, let's call it h1 of theta. And this radius up here, I'm going to call it r2, is h2 of theta. So I can describe E as being equal to the set of points x, y, z, such that xy is in D and u1 of xy is less than or equal to z, which is less than or equal to u2 of xy. That's going to describe all my points in E, such that D is actually a polar rectangle that's described by D being on the set of points are theta, such that alpha is less than or equal to theta, which is less than or equal to beta, and h1 of theta is less than or equal to r, which is less than or equal to h2 of theta. So we just described this region E in 3 space and its projection D in terms of D was described in terms of polar coordinates. Now we know that the double integral over D of the integral, say u1 xy, u2 of xy, f of xy z dz dA is actually equal to the triple integral over E of f of x y z dv. But we also know how to integrate over polar coordinates. So this triple integral I can write as the integral from alpha to beta, h1 of theta to h2 of theta, u1 of xy, but x is going to be r cosine theta, y is r sine theta, to u2 of xy, which again is going to be r cosine theta, r sine theta, of f of xy, which is r cosine theta, r sine theta, r dz dr d theta. So what we just did is, like I said, we know how to integrate in polar coordinates, and that's all we really did, is we applied that idea to this 3 space to jump to cylindrical coordinates. Now, this conversion from rectangular to cylindrical may seem like a lot with all these sines and cosines floating around and stuff, but it may very well be very, very worth it um, if this region defined by E is either written in cylindrical coordinates or if f of x, y, and z, if this has in it an x squared plus a y squared, if that's part of that function, then that's a big hint that this may be very well worth the effort to make this conversion.